You are welcome to our basic science class today. But are you surprised seeing me appear this way? Well, I know that you know about this called nose mask. Anyway, let me just pull it off. If you were surprised why I couldn't this, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Have you ever been somewhere when a car passed and possibly the car is bringing out this usual thick and black smoke and you felt like, I'm choking, I can't breathe properly? Alright, have you ever passed somewhere where there are heaps of waste, dump of refuse, waste possibly that have stayed over some days, and you feel like, here is smelling the odor, oh my god, I cannot breathe. Maybe you try covering your face, your nose, or maybe you momentarily stop breathing at the moment, because some people do that so as to pass that place in order not to perceive the bad odor that is coming out. What about this situation? Have you ever walked past a place and you feel like, if not that these containers, this rubbish are heaped here, I could have taken this way because maybe this place is blocked. How about breathing? Maybe during dry season. And when you are breathing, it's as if what you are breathing in is smoke. Possibly because dust particles are suspended in the air that you are breathing. All of these examples that I've mentioned, they make life uncomfortable for us. And that is why in this class today, I'll be teaching you pollution. Pollution. Yes, that is what all these cases, these examples I mentioned, that is what they are. They are known as pollution. Quickly, let me still point out another one to you. We are told that water is a tasteless, odorless, and colorless substance. And of course, it's true. But have you ever drank water before and maybe somehow it's as if the water has taste? And so you tell someone around you, this water I don't understand. It's tasting somehow. And so you start wondering, when has water started having taste? Definitely because the water is polluted. And when you visit some places, you could see streams or rivers that the color is something else. You know that river, streams, they are water, alright? And then you're seeing something no longer colorless. That is pollution. Alright, having given these various examples, you could see the reason why I had these on my face covering my nose. Alright? Maybe because of pollution. Alright? Okay, we are going to learn about pollution today, what pollutants are, types of pollution. Alright? That is what we are going to look at in our class today. And of course, we are going to also talk about the effects that pollution has on us. In our next class, we will deal with ways to control pollution, how we can control it. At least reducing it. Because this is dangerous to our life. Pollution. Let us define it. On the board, we will have the definition of pollution. It is defined as the release of unwanted materials or substances into the environment, which makes the environment unsafe and which could be dangerous to life. which could be dangerous to our health. So these are the points in the definition of pollution. It is the release of something into the environment. And what is that? Unwanted materials or substances. Yes, those materials or substances are unwanted because when you release them into the environment, they make the environment uncomfortable for living. And then we said that releasing these materials, these substances into the environment could even affect our health. It can affect life. As a matter of fact, many people today are suffering from pollution. Some of the illness that we experience today is as a result of pollution. Yeah. Okay, now we want to talk about pollutants. Pollutants. What are pollutants? Because pollutants and pollution are not the same thing. Pollutants are those substances, those materials, which when released into the environment, make the environment unsafe, unfit for life. Those materials which when released into the environment could be dangerous to health. That is what pollutants are. So you see, why pollution is the process of releasing something, releasing those unwanted materials. Pollutant refers to the unwanted materials themselves. So if this nose mask, maybe when released into the environment, when thrown into the surrounding, can make the environment unfit for us to live in, can make the environment uncomfortable. The process of my throwing this nose mask into the environment, that is the process of releasing it into the environment, is what we call pollution. Then the nose mask itself is the pollutant, because that is the unwanted material. Anyway, I'm not saying that nose mask is a pollutant, but of course it can be made to become a pollutant. After using it, if you just throw it anyhow on the street, you have actually released a pollutant into the environment. I hope you understand the definition of pollution and what pollutants are. If you have any question, remember you can always send across your question. Let us now look at the examples of pollutants. Things which when we release them into the environment could be dangerous, could make the environment unsafe for us. Pollutants. Some examples. There are many of them. We just have a few on the board. Kitchen wastes. They are pollutants. Kitchen waste. What do we mean by kitchen waste? Maybe things after cooking food, the particles that fall to the ground, they make up waste. Does that make sense? And many more. Why not discuss that with your parents, possibly your mom? Okay, what are the things you can do? Maybe while cooking, if we drop those things anyhow in the kitchen, they might make the kitchen uncomfortable, alright, or dirty. Those things, they make up pollutant. So we refer to them as kitchen waste. We have all this here. Carbon dioxide. The chemical formula is CO2. We also call it carbon dioxide. It's also a pollutant. It's a gas. Carbon monoxide. CO. Okay, CO. Carbon monoxide, CO. Okay, I didn't write that on the board. Carbon monoxide, CO, is also what? A pollutant. That one is really very dangerous. What about oxides of nitrogen? Like nitrogen 4 oxide, that is nitrogen dioxide. And then nitrogen 2 oxide, that is nitrogen monoxide. They are also examples of pollutants. What about our polyethylene? That one you call leather. The correct name is polyethylene, okay? It's also a pollutant because when you get this thing thrown anyhow, okay, on the streets, you make the environment dirty, unkept. It will make the environment unsafe for us to enjoy. And so it can also become a pollutant depending on how we use it. Throwing them anyhow. Pure water sachet, alright? Just drink water, you throw it anyhow. These are pollutants. What about plastics? Maybe our plastic buckets, plastic plates, when we no longer use them, just throw them anyhow. They form pollutants as well too. Sewage is another example of pollutant. What do we mean by sewage? Sewage is when you have solid substances mixed up with liquid. Alright, I'm going to give you a quick example to help you understand what sewage is. In our houses, you have water closets where we go to defecate. Alright, so when you defecate, what you pass out is a solid waste. It goes into the water in the closet, and of course, that mixture, that mix-up is what we call sewage. Alright, you have pipes connected to pass it out from your room. So that is sewage. It's also a pollutant. We have oil spillage. Oil spillage also is a pollutant. For example, these tankers that carry petrol, alright, and gases, diesel. These things are gases. Some of them can escape, and when they escape by evaporating, some of them can find their way into water bodies on the surface of water, and they make the water unsafe for us to use. Refuse, a good example, all these dustbins and other things. So we make dustbins, we make waste from our houses and we throw them to where we have refuse dumps. Okay, where we have refuse dumps. Many people are suffering from that now. All of these are examples of pollutants and many more. You can think of other examples. Alright, let us now look at the types of pollution. There are 4 of them. Alright, I'm going to mention the 4 types of pollution you are expected to know, but we're going to focus on 3 of them majorly. Types of pollution. 1, we have land pollution. 2, we have air pollution. 3, we have water pollution. 4, we have noise pollution. But we'll focus on the first 3, land pollution, air pollution, and water pollution. We shall now define the types of pollution. We are going to focus on 3 out of the 4 of them that I mentioned earlier. We're going to define land pollution, we'll define water pollution, and air pollution. And about here we have this definition. So we start with land pollution. What is land pollution? It is the release of unwanted material into the land surface, which makes the land surface unsafe for use. So whenever we release pollutants to the land surface, thereby making it unsafe for us to use that land, that is land pollution. Think about this. When you have maybe heaps of refuse dumps, alright? That is land pollution. Because in the time being, that area where this waste is heaped cannot be used. Alright? Cannot be used. Please take a look at this video clip. Now you would see certain things about land pollution. Alright? You could see the waste materials that are littered all around in the video clip there. You see heaps of waste. Now the area where these wastes are being kept, it's not possible to use that area of land with this waste being kept there. Alright? So that is why we say that when we release pollutants into the land surface, making it impossible for us to use the land, that is actually what? Land pollution. You can take a look at so many of them. Alright? You can take a look at so many of them. That land is said to be polluted because within the time being, that land cannot be used as long as these wastes are left there. You could see plastics, littered about. That could injure someone when we go close to that place. Alright? And so it's a good example of land pollution. Let us now look at another type of pollution, air pollution. Definition: air pollution is the release of unwanted materials into the atmosphere, thereby making the atmosphere unsafe. We cannot make use of the atmosphere comfortably. Air pollution, very dangerous, because it even makes it impossible for us to breathe properly. Think about smoke. Now I have this video clip. Take a look at that. You could see vehicles covered with smoke. So you can ask yourself, the last time you stayed behind a vehicle that smoke is just coming out of, and then you are choking. When you tried breathing, you cannot breathe properly. Just look at how thin to even see the vehicles there moving is very difficult. So imagine this smoke coming out from the exhaust of the car, being breathed by someone. How dangerous that could be. The effect it can have on our health. What about this? Alright? Industrial smoke. You can see the smoke going directly into the sky. From the industry, you see things like that. Okay? Where the gas is being burnt, which comes out in forms of smoke, they empty it into the atmosphere. Wow. Just imagine breathing such air. You know what that can do, right? Very dangerous. So these are things or cases of air pollution. Now talk about waste being dumped. Please take a look again at this waste. This waste being left over some time, this refuse being left over sometimes. What do you think will happen to the air around that area? When all those substances have degraded, they start bringing out repugnant gases, that is very offensive odor. And then you pass through that place. Passively, as you're watching this video and learning about the types of pollution, you probably are already thinking of areas you have passed where you saw something like this. Okay? And the odor around that place, the air you were breathing, in fact, you were not comfortable with such air. Sometimes, possibly you closed your nose and then you walked fast to move away from that area. So that is air pollution. When we make the atmosphere unsafe, uncomfortable for use. We're now going to look at water pollution. Definition of water pollution. Again, it is the release of unwanted material into water bodies. When we release these unwanted materials into water body, it makes the water unsafe for us to use, even as humans. And it is also dangerous to aquatic lives, to aquatic organisms. Think about the fishes in the river, okay, in the stream. When water is polluted, it affects them, okay? Some of them even die because of such pollution. And what of us as humans? When you know that this water is polluted, would you drink of it? Would you even use it to cook? What about bathing? Of course, if you bathe with such, it could cause skin irritation. Your body might react to it, and you could see some rashes due to the pollution of that water. So when we release unwanted material into water bodies, okay, that is water pollution. And again, I have below here, you could see a picture showing water pollution. You could see pipes through which sewage is coming out. Alright, faces from people's home. Sometimes this thing is channeled, or these things are channeled into water bodies, into streams. So this waste from homes pass directly into streams. And someone out there makes use of this stream, the water from the stream. What about this one? Take a look. You can see the pipes, possibly industrial waste, where the industry, after their production and other things, the liquid which come out, these are sewages because it contains suspended solid particles, dissolved solid particles, okay, mixed up. That's what we mean by suspended solid particle in the liquid. Solid particles used during the production processes mixed with the liquid that they use in the production. And you can see the pipes channeled into rivers, so the thing flows out. Some of this liquid contains dangerous chemicals. They move into water body, and again, someone out there makes use of this water. It could be for drinking, it could be for cooking, for washing, for bathing. But this water is being polluted. Now, when people around get to know about that, they can no longer make use of that water. And of course, such can lead to shortage of good water. These things are pollution processes. So whenever we release unwanted materials into water bodies, we've polluted the water, and that is called water pollution. You could see this example as I showed you. Now take a look at the picture clip. Now this water body is so polluted, you could see around it. You will see rubbishes thrown around it. Can you see that? Rubbishes are thrown around it. Some of these things can flow into the river. Even if the plastics you see there, the debris, the refuse, wastes that are being thrown there, some of them are so dangerous when they get into the water body, because these things are produced with chemicals. When they get into the water body, what happens to the water? So you can see that they'll just go into it, and people can no longer make use of the water. You can't drink of it. Even bathing with it will be very difficult. You can see that. You can see how rubbishes, are just littered, thrown all about in the picture over there. So such water is polluted. I think now you understand the idea of land pollution, air pollution, and water pollution. You see, thanks to God somehow that the earth has a way of purifying itself. But when excess of these pollutants are released, they cause damage. They make the environment highly unsafe and uncomfortable. Is that okay? And that is why we are really worried about pollution. Now, let us quickly talk about the effects that pollution can have on us. Is that right? On the board here, we have this effect of pollution. Okay? It reduces the land available for us to use. Because like I mentioned already, if there is a particular place that pollutants are being released and heat, for example, where we have waste, okay, there's the waste bins, dumps of them, we can't make use of such land. Further enough, some of these wastes, when it is raining, some of them can even be washed to the road, such that vehicles, people walking with legs, find it difficult to even know where to step their leg as they are walking past through that place. So you see that one effect of pollution, it reduces the land area that is available for use. Well, you can go through the note, okay, on these effects of pollution. It reduces availability of water. It causes illness. I would like to focus more on health effects of pollution. We are going to use this picture clip to talk about the effect that this pollution can have, especially on us. Because when we start seeing how pollution affects our life, we'll be more careful on the extent and the way in which we release pollutants into the environment. Can you see this picture? It's showing, you know, the, should I say, the inner person, like the inner body, when waste, okay, when pollutants are being released, what they cause to our body. I will start from the head there. You could see that pollutants can cause headache. They can cause fatigue, weakness. When we have headache, that can make us to be weak. Pollutant can cause that. You can see that air pollution, when we breathe all these pollutants released into the atmosphere. You can see arrows showing that. Now when we breathe these things we breathe includes carbon monoxide, alright? Carbon monoxide, CO. They include particulate matter, I've mentioned that, like smoke, dust suspended in air. Even in our homes, especially during dry season, that happens. Are you following, right? When we breathe all those things, they can cause us headache. That's not all. They can cause nerve damage. Nerve damage. For example, there is something we call lead poisoning. Lead poisoning. It can even come from food. That lead can be suspended in air, okay? That is why it is not advisable to buy food whereby the food is exposed to the atmosphere in the first place, not covered. Because when this air is being blown through, you don't know the pollutant that is inside. Lead, LED, is one pollutant that is carried about by air. Are you following, right? And when this gets into our food and we eat it, it can cause what we call lead poisoning. That lead poisoning can affect our nerves. Can affect our what? Nerves. Our nerves in the body include all the things, the systems that help to communicate. We have a lot of nerves in our body. Are you following, right? That helps us to respond to certain things in our environment. Okay, we are moving on. What about respiratory illness? You can look at this picture there. You can see respiratory illness. When we breathe in bad air, it affects our respiratory system. For example, breathing in smoke, it can choke us, and our breathing will not be normal anymore. That can even kill someone. Cardiovascular illness, that is heart attack. Heart attack. Pollution can also lead to that. Cancer. Sleeplessness, not being able to sleep, skin irritation. All these things are things that pollution can cause. And you see, these things get into our body through the air, from water, and of course, soil. Talking about soil land, we can talk about pesticides. For example, farmers sometimes apply fertilizer. Fertilizer contains a lot of chemicals. When there is rainfall and these chemicals are washed into the water bodies and we drink of them, these things can be dangerous to our health. You could see in that picture clip there, you can see where pesticide is being written. Alright? It comes from the soil, the land, and it gets into our body. It can cause cancer. You can see the arrow directing to where it can affect. It can cause cancer, it can cause nausea, sleeplessness, skin irritation, and other things. So the effect of pollution is very dangerous. And that is why it is very, very important for each of us to consider ensuring that we reduce the extent, the degree, the level of pollution in our world today. In our next class, we'll be looking at ways we can control pollution. Somehow, we may not be able to stop it completely in our world now, but how can we reduce it so that the risk, the dangers can also be reduced? Maybe let me quickly remind you, there are places I go to, at times it becomes very difficult for me to breathe. I walk very quickly past that place, At times I have my nose closed. At times, just for some moment, like for 1 minute or so, I may pause my breathing to ensure I pass that place first. Even to place my leg there is difficult. How about you? Do you know any place like that around your area? That is pollution. What can you do to stop that? What can you do to reduce that? What can I do to stop that? What can I do to reduce that? What can we all do to reduce pollution? In our next class, we are going to discuss that. How about trying yourself to determine your level of understanding of what you've learned in this lesson? Okay? Please kindly visit our quiz channel, the GMAETS41 quiz channel. Take the quizzes you have there on this topic and see how many you've scored to test how much you understand what you have learned so far.